You ever come home from a long shift expecting peace, and find out your mom literally stole your whole living room? Let me tell you what happened, and how it completely shook me to my core. I'm Talia, 27, and I work as a nursing assistant. For months, I'd been putting in extra hours, picking up overtime shifts, and saving every spare dollar to finally furnish my first apartment. Every piece of furniture, every little decoration, every single item was bought with my hard-earned money. I imagined coming home after work, sinking into my couch, and finally feeling proud of the space I'd built for myself. That night, after a brutal double shift, I unlocked my door and walked in expecting that little slice of peace. What I found instead made my stomach drop like I'd been punched. My living room was empty. The sofa, the dining table and chairs, my $2,000 mattress, all gone. I blinked a few times, hoping my tired eyes were playing tricks on me. But no, the apartment looked like a furniture store had gone on a clearance sale. And I wasn't the one shopping. I ran to the landlord's office, my heart hammering. He looked at me and said something I still can't get out of my head. My mom had come by earlier that day with movers, told him I was relocating, and took everything. I froze. My mom. My own mother. She had literally stolen everything I'd worked for, and she didn't even try to hide it. I felt a mix of anger, disbelief, and sadness swirling together. How could someone who's supposed to protect and support you just take what's yours like it's nothing? I kept thinking maybe it was a mistake. Maybe she thought I'd given her permission. But deep down, I knew better. Every piece of furniture, every item in that apartment, I had bought it myself with my blood, sweat, and tears. I spent hours pacing my empty apartment that night, staring at the bare walls that used to feel like home. I replayed every conversation I'd had with her, trying to find a clue, anything that might have warned me. Nothing. Just the cold realization that my mom didn't respect me, my effort, or my space. I couldn't even begin to understand why she thought it was okay to just take everything and hand it over to my sister like it was some kind of gift. All I could do was sit there in the silence, letting the shock and hurt sink in, and try to figure out what to do next. This wasn't just about furniture anymore. It was about betrayal, trust, and realizing that sometimes the people who are supposed to have your back might be the ones who hurt you the most. I couldn't believe what had just happened, but I knew I had to hear it from her directly. I dialed my mom, Monica, my hands shaking. When she picked up, I tried to keep my voice calm, though I could feel it cracking. Mom, why is my furniture at Araya's house? There was a pause on the other end, and then she said it like it was nothing, like she was telling me the weather. Oh, Talia, I just borrowed it for Araya. She just moved into her first house, and she really needed it. My blood ran cold. I stared at my phone, unable to comprehend how casually she could say that. Borrowed? Mom, this isn't borrowing. You took everything I bought. Every single thing. My voice rose despite my attempt to stay steady. She sighed, as if I was being dramatic. Talia, she needed it more. You have your job, your overtime, your apartment. Araya doesn't have much. Family shares, you know that. Family shares? My jaw tightened. I wanted to scream. How could she justify stealing from me and handing it over to my sister like it was some noble act? I could feel my heart pounding, a mix of fury, betrayal, and disbelief. Every word she said made me feel smaller, like my hard work and sacrifice didn't mean anything to her. I hung up, my hands trembling. I couldn't sit still. I had to see it for myself. I jumped in my car and drove across town, each red light feeling like it was testing my patience. When I pulled up to Araya's house, my stomach twisted. Through the window, I saw it all. My living room furniture perfectly arranged like some kind of display. My sofa, the dining table, my little decorations. Everything I had spent months saving for. It looked like a showroom, but it wasn't supposed to be here. My things were in someone else's home, and my sister was living her first days surrounded by the work of my hands. I stepped closer, peering through the glass. There was Araya, smiling, arranging pillows on my couch like she was proud of what she had. I felt a mix of shock and anger, so sharp it almost made me dizzy. I wanted to pound on the door, to demand my stuff back right then, but I also knew I had to think. My mom's justification, Araya's smiles, and that sense of helplessness burned inside me. I backed away from the window, my mind racing. This wasn't just about furniture anymore. It was about respect, fairness, and the line between family support and outright theft. I knew one thing for sure. Seeing it with my own eyes made the betrayal feel 10 times worse, and there was no going back to how things were before. I couldn't hold it in anymore. The next day, I drove straight to my mom's house, determined to get some answers. As soon as I walked in, I saw Araya sitting on my sofa, flipping through a magazine, completely at ease. My mom, Monica, was in the kitchen, casually sipping coffee like nothing had happened. I took a deep breath. Mom, Araya, this is my furniture. Every single piece. Why is it here? Monica looked at me with that calm, infuriating smile she always had when she thought she was right. Talia, you're overreacting. You should be proud that we're helping Araya. She needed it more than you. I felt my face heat up. Helping? Mom, you stole from me. This isn't helping, it's theft. You can't just take everything I worked for and call it help. Araya spoke up, her voice dripping with false innocence. Honestly, Talia, I think you're being selfish. You have a good job, you already have your own stuff. Mom's just trying to make sure things get to where they're needed. Selfish? Materialistic? My chest tightened, the words cutting deeper than I expected. I couldn't believe my own family was twisting this on me, making me feel like the villain in my own life. Monica stepped closer, her tone sharp but calm. Talia, you need to understand. Family shares are about giving, about supporting each other. You should be proud that your things are going to someone who needs them. You're making this about yourself, and that's not how family works. It wasn't just her. The moment word got out, calls started coming in. Cousins, aunts, even my grandmother chimed in, all saying the same thing. I was overreacting, I was dramatic, I was selfish. Every attempt to explain myself was met with lectures about family loyalty, generosity, and understanding. I tried to reason, tried to explain the countless hours I'd worked, the sacrifices I made to furnish my apartment, the careful thought behind every purchase. But it was like talking to a brick wall. Instead of support, I got judgment, guilt, and more blame. My hands shook, my chest felt heavy, and I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit before. I couldn't trust them anymore. The people who were supposed to have my back, the people I loved and counted on, were all turning against me. I stormed out, slamming the door behind me, feeling a mix of anger, hurt, and disbelief. My apartment, now empty and silent, became the only place I could go. I sat down on the bare floor, surrounded by nothing but echoes of my lost things. That night, tears came quietly, bitter and hot, as I thought about the family who had sided with my mom and sister over me. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and heartbroken all at once. Every memory of trust, of shared love, now felt like a lie. I knew something fundamental had changed. The family I thought I knew had revealed who they really were, and it hurt more than anything I'd ever imagined. After that night, I realized arguing was useless. Every time I tried, my mom and sister turned it around on me, making me feel like the bad guy. So I stopped. I decided I wasn't going to let them walk over me anymore, but I wasn't going to do it angrily or recklessly. I needed a plan, quiet, smart, and with some real teeth behind it. The first thing I did was gather proof. I went through months of receipts, warranties, and credit card statements, pulling together every single document that showed I had bought each piece of furniture myself. I made neat folders for the sofa, the dining set, the mattress, and even the little decorative items. Seeing it all laid out in black and white made me feel a little stronger. This wasn't just about things anymore. It was about holding them accountable. Next, I contacted the furniture store. I explained the situation carefully, and they were able to provide duplicate receipts and verify that the items had been purchased under my name. I could almost feel the tension in my chest easing a little. I was no longer alone in this. I had evidence, and that meant I had power. Then I reached out to my landlord. I told him exactly what had happened, how my mom had come in, claimed I was moving, and taken all of my stuff. He sighed, clearly frustrated, and confirmed my side of the story. I've seen it with my own eyes, Talia, he said. I know what she told me wasn't true. If you need me to testify, I will. That one sentence hit me like a lifeline. I wasn't imagining it, and someone official could back me up. I spent days quietly organizing everything, cataloging each item, its value, and all the supporting documents. I even took photos of the apartment after the furniture was gone, showing the empty rooms. Each piece of proof was like another brick in the foundation of my plan. But I also reminded myself to stay calm. This wasn't about yelling or storming into my mom's house. It was about strategy. I didn't need to fight them on emotion anymore. I had facts, records, and witnesses. I let my anger simmer quietly, turning it into focus instead of chaos. By the end of the week, I had everything lined up. My receipts, the store confirmations, statements from the landlord, and a clear record of every violation. For the first time since this nightmare started, I felt in control. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I had a path forward, a plan to take back what was mine without stooping to their level. The betrayal still stung, but now it was fueling something stronger. Determination, clarity, and the quiet confidence that I would see justice done. I thought the worst was behind me. After gathering all my receipts, statements, and proof, I told myself I would stay calm and focused. I convinced myself that my mom wouldn't dare cross the line again. I was wrong. One evening, I came home from work exhausted, expecting at least the small comfort of my apartment to be mine. As I walked in, my stomach sank immediately. Something felt off. Lamps I had carefully chosen, decorations I loved, even my grandmother's quilt, all gone. My heart raced. I knew instantly who it was. Monica had used a spare key she still had from when I'd lived under her roof and walked right in again. She thought I had moved on, that I wouldn't notice, that she could just take what she wanted whenever she felt like it. It wasn't about the big-ticket items this time. It was about violating my space, taking pieces of my life that had sentimental value, things money couldn't replace. Seeing my grandmother's quilt, something that carried generations of love, in someone else's hands hit me like a punch to the gut. I stood frozen for a moment, the reality crashing over me. My apartment, the one place I thought was truly mine, had been violated again. I felt a surge of anger, sharper than anything I had felt before, mixed with that raw, aching hurt of betrayal. This wasn't just my mom being selfish. This was her trying to assert control over me, to remind me that she could, and that she didn't care how it made me feel. That night, I made decisions I should have made the first time. First, I changed every lock in the apartment. No more spare keys, no more unauthorized entries. My home had to be mine, and I wasn't leaving that up to anyone else. Next, I blocked my mom and sister from calling or texting me. No more guilt trips, no more manipulations. I had to protect my space and my peace. And finally, I decided enough was enough. I wouldn't sit silently while my family treated me like I didn't matter. I began preparing to take legal action. This wasn't just about furniture anymore. It was about boundaries, respect, and finally showing them that actions have consequences. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Confrontation with family is never easy. But this time I wasn't going to let emotions cloud my decisions. I was calm, methodical, and determined. Sitting in my apartment that night, surrounded by the emptiness left after yet another theft, I felt a mixture of grief and resolve. Grief for the trust that had been shattered, and resolve that this time, things would be different. I wasn't just reclaiming my property. I was reclaiming my life, my space, and my dignity. And I promised myself, whoever thought they could hurt me again would find out I wasn't someone to be trifled with. After the final violation, I knew I couldn't rely on words or family guilt anymore. This was bigger than emotions. This was theft, plain and simple. I went straight to the police and filed a civil theft report, handing over every bit of evidence I had collected. Receipts, credit card statements, photos of the empty apartment, and store confirmations. I made sure everything was organized, clear, and undeniable. The officer behind the desk nodded, sympathetic but cautious. "We can't act immediately," he said, "but we can open an investigation." A detective was assigned to my case, someone who actually listened to me and took notes on everything Monica and Araya had done. For the first time, it felt like my side of the story mattered to someone outside the family. I could practically hear Monica's mocking voice in my head. She had laughed when I told her I might involve the law, saying, "You wouldn't dare get the police involved. You're too sentimental to actually take action." She thought I was bluffing, that I would fold under pressure. But this time, I wasn't bluffing. I was ready. I called my friend Lisa, a lawyer who worked at the hospital with me. She had helped me navigate work-related legal issues before, and I trusted her completely. I explained the situation in detail, sending her scans of all my proof. She listened carefully, then gave me a calm, practical plan. Write a formal demand letter. It would clearly state my ownership, outline the theft, and give Monica and Araya 7 days to return all my property before facing legal consequences. Sitting at my kitchen table, I started drafting the letter. Every word mattered. I outlined each piece of furniture, its value, and the fact that I had purchased it myself. I explained the repeated violations, including the latest trespassing and theft of sentimental items. I emphasized that this was not just a request, It was a legal notice, and the law would back me up. After sending it through certified mail, I felt a mix of anxiety and power. Monica had no idea this time. No chance to twist the story or guilt-trip me into giving up. I had documentation, a legal process, and someone ready to fight alongside me. I spent the next few days waiting, but I didn't sit idly. I continued organizing all my proof, taking photos, and keeping records of any communication. I knew that once the deadline arrived, I wanted everything airtight. For the first time since this nightmare started, I felt a strange sense of calm. The situation was serious, but it was finally being handled on my terms. I wasn't pleading with my mom or sister anymore. I had set the lines clearly: return my property or face the consequences. And deep down, I knew this time, they would realize I wasn't the same person they could manipulate. I had the law, the proof, and the determination on my side, and that was something no amount of laughter or family pressure could ever take away. Word spread faster than I expected. Within a couple of days, my phone was flooded with calls from cousins, aunts, and even my grandmother. Every call started the same way: concern masked as judgment. "Talia, you need to drop this," they said, almost in unison. "You're tearing the family apart." I felt the weight of it immediately. Everyone who should have supported me seemed to be lining up against me, as if standing up for myself was the real crime. I tried to explain calmly at first that this wasn't about anger or money, but about respect and my own home. But they wouldn't hear it. They insisted that family comes first, that I should forgive and forget, and that my mom and sister weren't really in the wrong. Each conversation left me more isolated. Even the people I loved, the ones I thought would understand, were calling me dramatic or selfish. The betrayal I felt from my mom now had ripples through the entire family. For a moment, I wondered if I was the problem, if I had somehow misjudged everything. But deep down, I knew I hadn't. My furniture, my space, my life, they had been taken without my consent, and no amount of family loyalty could erase that fact. A few days later, Monica decided to confront me in person. She showed up at my workplace, smiling, carrying that same air of control she always had. "Talia, we need to talk," she said, her voice sweet but calculated. I felt my chest tighten. I knew she would try to manipulate the situation, twist words, and maybe even guilt me into dropping everything. But this time, I wasn't going to let her. I discreetly set up my phone to record the conversation, keeping it hidden in my bag. As she rambled about family unity and how I was being unreasonable, I stayed calm, asking questions that made her reveal the truth herself. And then it happened. She admitted, casually, without realizing the recording was on, that she had taken my furniture and given it to Araya. She laughed lightly, like it was nothing. Hearing her say it out loud, captured in black and white, gave me a strange mix of relief and anger. Relief because I finally had undeniable proof, something concrete that no one could twist. Anger because she had the nerve to treat it like a joke, like my years of work and effort meant nothing. Walking away from that conversation, I felt a new kind of clarity. The family calls, the guilt-tripping, the lectures, none of it mattered anymore. I had proof, I had the law on my side, and I had the determination to see this through. For once, I wasn't just reacting emotionally, I was acting strategically. And for the first time since this all started, I felt like I was truly in control of the situation. Monica and the rest of the family could say what they wanted, but I knew the truth, and now I had it on record. I wasn't alone anymore. I had my evidence, and that was all I needed to start turning the tide. With the recording safely stored and all my receipts organized, I felt a strange mix of nerves and anticipation. This was it, the moment I had been quietly preparing for weeks. I contacted Lisa, my lawyer friend, and we went over everything one last time. She took the recording, the receipts, the credit card statements, and all the documentation I had gathered and sent them directly to the detective handling my case. It wasn't long before I got a call that made my heart race. The detective confirmed he had everything and was ready to proceed. The police would be going to Araya's house to recover the furniture. Hearing that, I felt a rush of vindication, a sense that my efforts and patience were finally paying off. This wasn't just about furniture anymore. It was about accountability, about showing them that actions have consequences, even when it's family. The next day, I waited anxiously in my apartment, listening for updates. Then came the call. The police had arrived at Araya's house. I could almost picture the scene, Araya's shock, my mom's panic, and the long overdue reality settling in that their actions had finally caught up to them. I imagined Araya screaming, probably trying to argue that she deserved it or that it was just a family matter, while Monica pleaded, trying to manipulate the officers, maybe hoping that charm or excuses would work. But this time, there was no room for theatrics. The police had the law, my proof, and the formal process on their side. They couldn't be swayed by guilt trips, lies, or family pressure. When I finally got the confirmation that the furniture had been seized and returned to me, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The sofa, the dining set, my mattress, all the decorations and personal items, they were coming back home. It was surreal to think that all the planning, all the meticulous gathering of evidence, and the months of silent determination had led to this moment. For once, my mom and sister faced real consequences. There was no twisting the story, no turning the blame onto me. They couldn't gaslight or manipulate anyone anymore. They had acted wrongly, and now the law had intervened. I could almost hear their protests, the shocked tones and desperate excuses, but I didn't care. I had worked quietly, smartly, and finally, justice was being served. When the movers arrived with my furniture, I walked through the apartment, watching each item return to its rightful place. The familiar weight of my sofa, the comfort of my mattress, and the little decorations that made the space mine again. They weren't just things. They were proof that standing firm, planning carefully, and taking action could reclaim what was stolen, even from the people you should trust the most. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of triumph that wasn't loud or gloating. It was quiet, steady, and deserved. Monica and Araya had finally been held accountable, and I could begin rebuilding my home, my life, and my peace. This was my victory, earned through patience, strategy, and unwavering determination. After the furniture was finally returned, the atmosphere in the family shifted in ways I hadn't expected. Word of the police involvement and the seizure of my items spread quickly. Suddenly, the same relatives who had been calling me, lecturing me, and telling me to drop it started turning cold toward Monica and Araya. Their whispers and judgment shifted. Now they were wary of my mother and sister, no longer blindly siding with them. It was strange to watch the family dynamics flip so quickly, but I didn't complain. I had stayed true to myself, and now others were seeing the truth too. Araya, who had seemed so confident and untouchable, faced consequences she hadn't imagined. Her boyfriend, who had been supportive of her in small ways but oblivious to her manipulations, suddenly saw her actions in full. The way she had treated me, her own sister, for her convenience and comfort, was too much for him. One evening, he called her and broke things off, telling her he couldn't be with someone who hurt family for selfish reasons. I didn't feel joy in his breakup, but I felt a quiet satisfaction that the truth had a way of coming out, and that those who acted without care were no longer shielded. Monica, on the other hand, tried to make her peace with me. She called, she texted, and even stopped by my apartment unannounced, offering apologies that felt rehearsed and hollow. "I'm sorry, Talia. I didn't realize it would get this far," she said, her voice filled with an awkward mix of guilt and defensiveness. But by that point, her words carried no weight. Too much had already happened. Too many boundaries had been broken. Words alone couldn't undo the betrayal, the sleepless nights, or the months of frustration and hurt. I didn't lash out. I didn't make a scene. I simply listened, acknowledged her words, and then let them go. Apologies can only matter if they are backed by true understanding and change, and it was clear that wasn't there. I realized then that protecting my own peace sometimes meant protecting it from those who were supposed to love you. Moving my furniture back into my apartment was more than just reclaiming my possessions. It was reclaiming my space, my energy, and my boundaries. Every piece I placed, every item I set in its rightful place, felt like a small victory, a restoration not just of a living room, but of my sense of self. The apartment finally felt like home again, not just because of the items inside, but because I had fought for it and refused to let betrayal define me. In that quiet, I understood something profound. Sometimes the price of peace is cutting blood ties, not out of anger, but out of necessity. Family doesn't always mean protection, and love doesn't always mean respect. I didn't need approval or understanding from those who had hurt me. I needed my own life, my own space, and my own boundaries. And in taking those back, I finally felt free. Sitting in my fully restored apartment months later, I finally felt a quiet kind of peace I hadn't known in a long time. The furniture was back, each piece exactly where it belonged, but more importantly, the weight of constant worry and betrayal had lifted. The silence wasn't lonely, it was calm, a space I had fought to reclaim, and now it was truly mine. I thought a lot about the past, the months of hard work, the anger, the disbelief, and the heartbreak. What had hurt me the most wasn't just losing my furniture or seeing my belongings in someone else's home. It was the betrayal, the realization that the people I had trusted most could disregard my feelings, my efforts, and my space so completely. Family betrayal cuts the deepest because it comes with expectations of love and loyalty that should be unconditional. But mine had shown me otherwise. I don't forgive them, and I don't think I ever will. Not because I want to hold on to bitterness, but because forgiveness in this case would mean excusing their actions, pretending what happened was acceptable, or opening the door for it to happen again. Instead, I've learned something far more valuable: how to protect my space, my boundaries, and my heart. I've learned that self-respect sometimes requires standing firm, even when everyone else tells you to bend. I've learned that love doesn't justify disrespect, and closeness doesn't excuse theft. My apartment now reflects who I am and what I stand for. It's bright, organized, and peaceful, a stark contrast to the chaos and manipulation I endured. Every item I placed, every corner I arranged, carries a sense of ownership and pride. This space is more than furniture. It's a symbol of resilience, a reminder that I reclaimed control over my life. When people ask about my family now, I answer simply and without bitterness. They taught me what love shouldn't look like. There's no need for long explanations, no need to justify myself. The statement holds all the weight it needs, carrying the truth of my experience and the lesson I've learned. It's not angry or vengeful. It's grounded in self-respect and clarity. I've realized that closure doesn't always come from reconciliation or apologies. Sometimes closure comes from reclaiming your life, your dignity, and your peace. It comes from drawing boundaries and refusing to let betrayal define your future. It comes from quiet reflection and the knowledge that you can build a life fully yours, even when the people who should have supported you failed to do so. Sitting there, I felt the full measure of that lesson. The apartment around me was a testament to my endurance, my courage, and my refusal to be silenced or diminished. The hurt from my family lingers, but it no longer controls me. I am free not because they changed, but because I chose to protect myself. And in that choice, I found my real victory: quiet, steady, and fully mine. Do you think Talia made the right choice by standing up for herself and cutting ties? Or should she have tried to repair her relationship with her mom and sister? Share your thoughts in the comments. I really want to hear what you think. And if you love real-life stories about betrayal, courage, and standing your ground, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our stories.